The brakes screamed. The truck fishtailed on black ice. Marcus Cole's heart stopped before his vehicle did. Through the blinding snow, a woman collapsed face first into the highway. A baby clutched to her chest. 3 small children stumbling behind her, barefoot, blue-lipped, crying without sound because the cold had stolen even that. She lifted her head. Her frozen lips moved. 4 words that would haunt him forever. "Don't let him find us." Then her eyes rolled back. Her body went limp. And Marcus Cole, the man who had driven into this blizzard to die, realized God had other plans. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from. Subscribe and stay until the end. This story will change everything you believe about second chances. Marcus Cole hadn't planned to be alive tonight. 3 years of guilt had brought him to this highway. 3 years of waking up in cold sweat, hearing his wife's voice on that last phone call. 3 years of imagining what she felt when the truck hit her car on this same frozen road, while he was 10,000 miles away clearing buildings in a country that didn't want him there. Tonight was supposed to be the end. The urn sat on the passenger seat. Jessica's ashes. Their unborn daughter's ashes. He was driving to the cabin to scatter them at sunrise to say goodbye, and then to disappear into the mountains where no one would find what was left of him. Shadow. His 5-year-old German shepherd pressed his head against Marcus's arm. The dog knew. He always knew. "I'm okay, boy," Marcus lied. Shadow whined. He didn't believe it either. The blizzard had come out of nowhere, swallowing the highway in white fury. Marcus gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white beneath scarred skin. 18 years as a Navy SEAL, 6 deployments, 2 Purple Hearts, and 1 Bronze Star for valor. None of it mattered now. None of it brought her back. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. Probably Jackson again, checking if he was still alive. His old teammate had been calling every day for 3 weeks, ever since Marcus admitted he'd been thinking about ending things. "I'm fine," Marcus had told him. "Just need some time." Jackson hadn't believed that either. The windshield wipers fought a losing battle against the snow. Visibility dropped to nothing. Marcus slowed the truck to a crawl, relying on instinct and the faint glow of his headlights reflecting off the white wall ahead. Shadow suddenly sat up straight. His ears pricked forward. A low growl rumbled from his chest. Marcus's training kicked in instantly. "What is it, boy?" Shadow barked once. Sharp, urgent. Then Marcus saw it. A figure in the road. Small. Stumbling. Falling. He slammed the brakes. The truck fishtailed on black ice before grinding to a stop. His headlights caught movement through the snow. Not one figure. 5. "Dear God," Marcus breathed. He threw open his door, and the wind nearly ripped it from his hands. The cold hit him like a physical blow, stealing his breath, burning his exposed skin. He pushed forward into the white void. The woman collapsed just as he reached her. She was young, maybe early 30s, with long black hair plastered to her face by ice and tears. Her skin had gone from what looked like warm copper to a frightening grayish blue. She clutched a bundle to her chest with frozen fingers. A baby. Barely 6 months old, wrapped in a thin blanket that had turned stiff with frost. Behind her, 3 children huddled together. 2 little girls and a boy, none of them older than 8. They wore clothes meant for autumn, not the killing cold of a Wyoming Christmas Eve. Their small bodies shook so violently Marcus could see it even through the blizzard. "Please," the woman gasped. Her eyes found his. Dark eyes, beautiful and terrified. "Save my children." "I've got you," Marcus said. He reached for her, but she grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "Don't let him find us," she whispered. "Promise me. Promise me you won't let him take them." Then her eyes rolled back, and she went limp in the snow. Marcus didn't hesitate. He scooped up the baby first, pressing the tiny body against his chest. The infant whimpered weakly. Still alive. Thank God. "Can you walk?" he shouted to the children over the wind. "I need you to walk to my truck. Can you do that?" The oldest girl nodded. She couldn't have been more than 8, but her eyes held something Marcus recognized. The look of a child who had grown up too fast. She grabbed her siblings' hands and started moving. Shadow appeared beside them, herding the children toward the truck like they were his flock. The little boy stumbled, and Shadow pressed against him, steadying him with his body. Marcus carried the baby in one arm and pulled the unconscious woman over his shoulder with the other. His muscles screamed in protest. His lungs burned from the cold. He kept moving. The truck's cab was still warm. He got the woman into the passenger seat, buckled the baby into her arms, and lifted the children one by one into the back seat. Shadow jumped in last, immediately positioning himself around the 3 small bodies sharing his warmth. The little boy pressed his face into Shadow's fur and started crying. "You're safe now," Marcus said. "You're safe." The oldest girl looked at him, with eyes too old for her face. "Mama said someone would come. She said God would send someone." Marcus's throat tightened. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Lily. I'm 8. That's Emma, she's 6. And Daniel is 4. The baby is Noah." "Okay, Lily. I'm Marcus. And we're going to get somewhere warm. Can you hold your mama's hand for me? Can you keep talking to her?" Lily nodded solemnly. She reached forward and took her mother's limp hand. Marcus pulled back onto the road. The hospital was 40 miles south, but in this blizzard, it might as well have been 400. His cabin was 8 miles up the mountain. He'd stocked it with supplies before his final drive, enough food and medicine for weeks. The cabin it was. "Mama, wake up," Lily said softly. "The angel man is taking us somewhere safe. Wake up and see him." Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter. Angel. If she only knew what he'd been planning to do tonight. What kind of angel takes his own life on Christmas Eve? But something was shifting inside him. A purpose he hadn't felt in 3 years. This woman had begged him to save her children. She had made him promise. And Marcus Cole had never broken a promise in his life. The cabin appeared through the trees like a ghost from Marcus's past. He hadn't been here since before Jessica died. Couldn't bear to look at the place where they'd planned to raise their family. The woman hadn't regained consciousness. Her breathing was shallow, her skin still that terrifying blue-gray. Hypothermia. Advanced. Without warming, she would die within hours. Marcus carried her inside first, laying her on the couch near the fireplace. His hands shook as he tried to start the fire. Not from cold. From fear. What if she died? What if he'd pulled them from the snow only to watch her die in front of her children? "Please," he muttered. "Please don't do this. Not tonight." The kindling caught. Flames licked at the logs. Marcus worked fast, grabbing every blanket he could find, stripping the wet clothes from the woman as carefully as he could manage, wrapping her in dry wool and positioning her toward the growing heat. The children stood in the doorway, watching with huge eyes. "Is Mama going to die?" Emma whispered. Marcus looked at the little girl. She had her mother's dark hair and wide eyes. Terror radiated from her small frame. "Not if I can help it," Marcus said. "But I need your help. Can you be brave for me?" Emma nodded, her lip trembling. "I need you to hold Noah. Keep him warm against your chest." "Can you do that?" Emma reached for the baby with the seriousness of a child given a sacred mission. She held Noah close, rocking him instinctively. "Lily, I need you to help me warm up your mama's hands and feet. We're going to rub them gently like this. Daniel, can you sit with the doggy? He'll keep you warm." Daniel didn't need to be told twice. He climbed onto the rug near the fire and curled up against Shadow's side. The dog wrapped around him like a protective shell. For the next 2 hours, Marcus worked. He heated water for warm compresses. He massaged the woman's extremities to restore circulation. He monitored her breathing, her pulse, the color slowly returning to her cheeks. And he prayed. Marcus hadn't prayed in 3 years. Not since the military chaplain told him Jessica was gone. He'd decided that night that either God didn't exist or he didn't care. Neither option seemed worth praying to. But tonight, with 4 children watching their mother fight for her life, Marcus found himself whispering words he thought he'd forgotten. "Please. Not her. Not in front of them. Please." At 11:47 p.m., the woman's eyes fluttered open. She gasped, sitting up suddenly, her hands reaching for something that wasn't there. "The children. Where are my—" "They're here," Marcus said quickly. "They're safe. They're all safe." Her wild eyes found Lily first, then Emma, holding the baby, then Daniel asleep against Shadow. The terror in her face cracked into something else. Relief so profound it looked like pain. "Oh God," she breathed. "Oh, thank God." She tried to stand and immediately collapsed. Marcus caught her before she hit the floor. "Easy. You're still recovering from hypothermia. You need to rest." "Who are you?" she demanded. Her body was weak, but her voice had steel in it. "Where are we? How did— My name is Marcus Cole. I found you on the highway about to freeze to death. We're at my cabin 8 miles from the main road. And you're going to tell me what the hell you were doing walking through a blizzard with 4 children on Christmas Eve." She stared at him. Her eyes moved over his face, searching for something. Threat. Deception. Whatever she was looking for, she didn't seem to find it. "Grace," she said finally. "Grace Whitehorse." "Who's him, Grace? Who were you running from?" Her face changed. The steel crumbled. In its place came a fear so raw it made Marcus's stomach turn. "You don't want to know," she whispered. "Trust me. You don't want any part of this. Just let us rest tonight and we'll be gone by morning." "Gone where? Back into that blizzard?" "I'll figure something out. I always do." "Like you figured out walking through a snowstorm with a baby." Grace's eyes flashed. "Don't you dare judge me. You have no idea what I've been through. What they've done to my family. What they're going to do to my children if they find us." Marcus knelt in front of her. He kept his voice low, calm. The voice he'd used with civilians in war zones. The voice that said, "I'm not your enemy." "Grace, look at me. I'm not judging you. I'm trying to help you. But I can't help if I don't know what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with anything. This is my problem, my fight. You made it my fight when you begged me to save your children. You made me promise not to let him take them. I keep my promises, Grace, every single one. So you can either tell me what's going on, or I can figure it out myself. But either way, I'm not letting you walk out of here until I know you're safe." Grace studied him for a long moment. The fire crackled. Shadow raised his head, watching her with intelligent eyes. In the corner, Daniel murmured in his sleep. "My husband is dead," Grace said finally. "They killed him 6 months ago." Marcus didn't move, didn't speak, just listened. Thomas was a good man, a great man. He worked with tribal leadership on the Cherokee Reservation, helping families in crisis. About 2 years ago, he started noticing something wrong. Children from vulnerable families were being removed by Child Protective Services and never coming back. The adoptions were sealed. The records were hidden. Nobody asked questions because nobody cared about poor Indian kids from broken homes. Her voice shook, but she kept going. Thomas dug deeper. He found that a man named Victor Blackwood was running the whole operation. He owns half the county. Politicians, judges, police. All in his pocket. He was taking children, Marcus, selling them, trafficking them like cattle. Marcus felt something cold settle into his chest. Not shock. Recognition. He'd seen operations like this overseas. Networks that preyed on the vulnerable, protected by money and power. He'd thought America was different. It wasn't. Thomas gathered evidence, documents, recordings, everything he needed to blow the whole thing open. He was supposed to meet with a federal contact the night he died. They said it was a hunting accident, a stray bullet. But Thomas didn't hunt. He never touched a gun in his life. They murdered him. Grace nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. Victor came to my door 3 days after the funeral. He said he was sorry for my loss. He said he wanted to help. He said all I had to do was marry him and keep my mouth shut, and my children would be safe. And when you refused, he told me he'd destroy me. And he has. 3 weeks ago, Child Protective Services showed up with a court order. They said I was an unfit mother. They said I had until tonight to surrender my children for emergency placement. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. That's why you ran. I had no choice. They were coming at dawn. I couldn't let them take my babies. I couldn't let them disappear like all those other children. Grace grabbed his arm, her grip desperate. You don't understand who you're dealing with. Victor Blackwood has connections everywhere. Judges, senators, even federal agents. Nobody can touch him. Nobody can stop him. Somebody stopped him enough that he needs your children, Marcus said quietly. Why? Why is he so determined to get them specifically? Grace's face went pale. The evidence. Thomas hid it somewhere before he died. He told me if anything ever happened to him, the truth would come out. Victor thinks I know where it is. He thinks if he has my children, I'll give him anything he wants. Do you know where it is? Grace hesitated. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind howled like something hungry and alive. My mother might, she whispered. Thomas loved my mother. He visited her the week before he died. If he hid it anywhere, it would be with her, on the reservation. Marcus sat back on his heels. His mind was already working, running through scenarios, calculating odds, assessing threats. Old instincts waking up after 3 years of dormancy. How long until they figure out you're not frozen dead somewhere? A few hours, maybe less. Victor has people everywhere. When I don't show up at the hearing tomorrow morning, they'll start looking. Then we need to move. Tonight. Grace stared at him. What? You need that evidence. Without it, Victor wins. He takes your children, buries the proof, and keeps operating like nothing happened. The only way to stop him is to expose him. And to do that, we need to get to your mother before he does. It's a 6-hour drive in good weather. In this blizzard, I've driven through worse in Afghanistan. Trust me. Why? Grace demanded. Why would you risk your life for strangers? You don't know me. You don't know my children. You don't owe us anything. Marcus looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman who had walked through a blizzard to save her children. Who had chosen possible death over the certainty of losing them. Who still had fight in her eyes, even after everything she'd lost. Because my wife died 3 years ago, Marcus said quietly. Because I was deployed when she needed me most. Because I've spent every day since then thinking about the promise I broke when I wasn't there to protect her. He reached over and touched the urn he'd placed on the mantel. Jessica's ashes. Their daughter's ashes. I came out here tonight to say goodbye. to end things. I was done fighting, Grace, done caring, done hoping. Grace's expression changed. Understanding bloomed in her eyes. But then I found you, Marcus continued. You and your children, freezing, dying, begging me to save them. And I realized something. Maybe God doesn't answer the prayers we want him to answer. Maybe he answers the ones we need. He stood up, his decision made. I wasn't supposed to be on that road tonight. You weren't supposed to survive that walk. But we're both here. And that means something. I don't know what yet. But I'm going to find out. Grace was crying again. Not the terrified tears of before. Something different. Something that looked almost like hope. You're insane, she said. Probably. But I'm also the best chance you've got. Shadow stood up and walked over to Grace. He pressed his nose against her hand, then licked her fingers gently. The children stirred, watching. Mama, Lily called softly. Is the angel man going to help us? Grace looked at Marcus, then at her children, then at the dog, who had already decided these 4 small humans belonged to him. Yes, baby, she said. I think he is. Marcus grabbed his coat. Get the children ready. We leave in 20 minutes. It's still a blizzard out there, which means Victor's men will be expecting you to wait until morning. They'll set up checkpoint search patterns. By the time they mobilize, we'll be halfway to the reservation. Grace struggled to her feet. She was still weak, still shaking, but the fear in her eyes had been replaced by something else. Determination. My mother's name is Helen Whitehorse, she said. She's 62 years old, and she's never trusted a white man in her life. She's going to take one look at you and tell you to get off her land. Marcus almost smiled. I've dealt with worse reception. You don't understand. She'll probably shoot first. Then I'll make sure to announce myself loudly. He moved toward the door, then stopped. Turned back. Grace, I need you to understand something. If we do this, there's no going back. Victor Blackwood will know who I am. He'll know I helped you. He'll come after me with everything he has. And that doesn't scare you. Marcus looked at the urn on the mantel, at the woman who had given him a reason to keep breathing, at the children who had no idea how close they'd come to dying. I've been living with ghosts for 3 years, he said. It's time I started fighting for something real. He opened the door. The blizzard roared, but Marcus didn't flinch. 20 minutes, Grace. Say goodbye to the fear. Because from this moment on, we fight. Grace picked up Noah, held him against her chest, and made a decision that would change everything. The evidence is in a Bible, she said. My grandmother's Bible. Thomas hit a flash drive in the spine. My mother keeps it in a cedar box in her bedroom. She doesn't even know it's there. Marcus nodded once. Now she does, and by tomorrow so will the rest of the world. The children were asleep in the back seat, within minutes piled together like puppies, with shadow stretched across them like a living blanket. The dog's eyes stayed open, watching, protecting. Grace sat in the passenger seat, Noah tucked against her chest. She hadn't stopped shaking since they'd left the cabin. We should have waited until morning, she said for the 3rd time. And let them set up a dragnet, no. We move now while they're blind. You really think Victor doesn't have people watching the roads? In this blizzard, he'll have people at the main checkpoints, sure. But there are back roads through the mountains. I used to hunt these trails with my father. We'll be through the worst of it before they even know you're alive. Grace was quiet for a moment. Then, your wife, what was her name? Marcus's grip tightened on the wheel. Jessica. How did she... Car accident. This same highway 3 years ago, almost to the day. She was driving to the cabin to surprise me when I got back from deployment. A truck crossed the center line. She was 8 months pregnant. Grace's hand flew to her mouth. Oh, God. Marcus, I'm so sorry. Don't be. You didn't do anything wrong. Neither did you. Yes, I did. I should have been home. Should have retired after my last deployment like she wanted. But I thought I was invincible. Thought I had more time. That's not your fault. Tell that to my dead wife. The words came out harsher than he intended. Grace didn't flinch. My husband used to blame himself for everything, too, she said quietly. Every child he couldn't save. Every family that fell through the cracks. He carried it all like it was his personal failure. Sounds like a good man. He was. He was the best man I ever knew. And Victor Blackwood put a bullet in his back and called it an accident. Marcus glanced at her. In the dim glow of the dashboard lights, he could see the steel in her eyes. The same steel he'd seen when she was half frozen and still demanding to know where her children were. We're going to make him pay, Marcus said. I promise you that. You keep making promises. What happens when you can't keep them? I've never broken a promise in my life. What about the promise to your wife to come home safe? The question hit him like a bullet. Marcus didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Grace reached over and touched his arm. I'm sorry. That was cruel. It was honest. There's a difference. You really were planning to end things tonight, weren't you? Yes. What changed? Marcus looked in the rearview mirror. 4 children sleeping peacefully under the protection of a dog who had decided they were his responsibility now. A family that had no one left to fight for them. You did, he said simply. You and those kids changed everything. They drove through the storm for 2 hours before Grace spotted the headlights behind them. Marcus? He'd already seen them. 2 vehicles maybe half a mile back, moving faster than any sane person would drive in these conditions. Could be nothing, he said, not believing it. It's not nothing. They found us. Marcus's mind raced. The main road was still 4 hours away. If Victor's men caught up to them out here, there would be no witnesses, no help, no hope. There's a turnoff about a mile ahead, he said. Old logging road. It'll be rough, but it connects to a Forest Service route that comes out near the interstate. And if they follow us, then we deal with it. Grace looked at him. Deal with it how you don't even have a gun. Marcus smiled grimly. I don't need a gun. He pushed the accelerator. The truck surged forward, fishtailing on the ice before the tires found purchase. Behind them, the headlights grew closer. Shadow lifted his head, sensing the change. A low growl built in his chest. Easy, boy, Marcus said. Not yet. The turnoff appeared through the swirling snow. Marcus didn't slow down. He cranked the wheel hard, felt the truck slide corrected, and powered through the drift, blocking the entrance to the logging road. The children jerked awake in the back seat. Daniel started crying. Mama, what's happening? It's okay, baby, Grace said, her voice remarkably steady. The nice man is just taking a shortcut. Marcus focused on the road ahead. The logging trail was narrow, barely wide enough for the truck, with drops on both sides that would kill them instantly if he made one wrong move. Behind them, only one set of headlights made the turn. The other had overshot, unable to react in time. Good. One was better than 2. Grace, there's a bag behind my seat. Green canvas. Get it. She reached back, found the bag, pulled it forward. What is it? Tools, just in case. She unzipped it, and her eyes went wide. This is a lot more than tools. I was a Navy SEAL for 18 years. Old habits. There's a knife in here that's bigger than my forearm. That's for the really old habits. Despite everything, Grace laughed. It was short, slightly hysterical, but it was a laugh. The logging road twisted through the trees. Marcus pushed the truck harder than he should have, taking curves at speeds that made Grace grip the door handle until her knuckles went white. The headlights behind them fell back, then disappeared entirely. "Did we lose them?" Grace asked. "Maybe. Or maybe they're calling for backup." He kept driving. 5 minutes. 10. The road began to widen. Signs of the Forest Service route appeared through the trees. Then his phone buzzed. Marcus glanced at the screen. "Unknown number." He answered, putting it on speaker. "Well, well," said a voice like silk over broken glass. "The seal who wouldn't die. I wondered when you'd show up in my story." Marcus's blood went cold. "Victor Blackwood. In the flesh, or at least in the phone. I have to say I'm impressed. Most men would have left Mrs. Whitehorse to freeze. But not you. Not the decorated hero. How did you get this number?" "I have the sheriff's office tracking every cell tower in 100 miles. The moment your phone pinged, I knew exactly where you were." Grace grabbed Marcus's arm. Her face had gone white. "Let me explain something to you, Mr. Cole," Victor continued. "I've spent 15 years building my operation. Judges, senators, federal contacts. I even have 2 members of the task force that's supposedly investigating me. You can't touch me. No one can." "Then why are you so scared of a widow and her children?" Silence on the other end. When Victor spoke again, the silk was gone. Only broken glass remained. "Because her dead husband had something that belongs to me, and I will get it back, one way or another. Come and get it yourself. See how that works out." "Oh, I intend to. In fact, I'm looking forward to it. But first let me make you an offer. Pull over. Leave Mrs. Whitehorse and the children on the road. Drive away and pretend none of this ever happened. I'll even throw in a bonus. $500,000. Enough to disappear. Start over. Forget that dead wife of yours." Marcus's hands shook on the wheel. Not with fear. With rage. "You want to know something about Navy SEALs, Victor? Enlighten me. We don't take bribes. We don't run from fights. And we never ever leave innocents behind." He threw the phone out the window. Grace stared at him. "You just hung up on the most dangerous man in Wyoming." "I did. He's going to come after you with everything he has." Marcus looked at her. In his eyes, something had changed. The emptiness was gone. The death wish had vanished. In its place burned a fire that had been cold for 3 years. "Let him," Marcus said. "I've been waiting for something worth fighting for. Guess I finally found it." He pressed the accelerator to the floor, and the real chase began. The Forest Service road spit them out onto the interstate at 3 in the morning. Marcus checked the rearview mirror every few seconds, but the headlights that had chased them through the mountains were gone. Either they'd lost their pursuers in the storm, or Victor's men were regrouping for another approach. Neither option let Marcus relax. Grace hadn't spoken in 20 minutes. She sat rigid in the passenger seat, Noah pressed against her chest, her eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. The children had fallen back asleep, exhausted beyond their ability to stay afraid. "We need to stop," Marcus said finally. "The truck needs gas, and those kids need food. We can't stop. Victor has people everywhere. Victor has people in cities, in towns, not at abandoned gas stations in the middle of nowhere." He pointed to a faded sign barely visible through the snow. "There's a place 2 miles ahead. Old trucker stop. Closed down years ago, but the pumps still work if you know how." "How do you know that?" "Because I've been running from my own demons on these roads for 3 years. You learn where to hide." Grace looked at him. Really looked at him. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone who talks more. Explains more. You just do things." Talking wastes time, and time is something we don't have. The trucker's stop appeared through the trees like a ghost from another era. Rusted pumps, boarded windows, a sign that once said, "Earl's Last Chance," now read, "Earl's Last Cha," after decades of weather damage. Marcus pulled around back, hiding the truck from the road. He killed the engine, but left the heater running. "Stay here. Keep the doors locked. If anyone comes that isn't me, you drive. Don't wait. Don't look back. Just drive." "I don't know where to go." "Your mother's. The reservation. You know the way." "And leave you behind." "If it comes to that, yes." He reached into the canvas bag and pulled out a handgun, checked the magazine, chambered a round. "But it won't come to that." He stepped out into the cold and disappeared around the building. Grace sat in the darkness, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Noah stirred against her chest, making soft sounds in his sleep. In the back seat, Shadow lifted his head, watching, waiting. "It's okay," Grace whispered. To the dog. To her children. To herself. "It's going to be okay." She didn't believe it. Not really. But she said it anyway because that's what mothers do. They lie to protect their children from the truth of how broken the world really is. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Grace's hand found the door handle. Where was he? What was taking so long? Then Marcus appeared at her window, and she nearly screamed. "Pump's working," he said, as if he hadn't just taken 10 years off her life. "Found some supplies inside, too. Canned food, water, blankets. Someone's been using this place as a cache." "Who?" "People like us. People running from something." He opened the back door gently, trying not to wake the children. "I'm going to fill the tank. Then we need to talk about what happens next." "I thought we were going to my mother's." "We are. But Victor's going to expect that. He'll have people waiting. We need a plan." He filled the tank while Grace fed the children crackers and water from the supplies he'd found. Lily ate mechanically, her eyes never leaving her mother's face. Emma nibbled at the edges of a cracker like a frightened mouse. Daniel refused to eat at all until Shadow nudged his hand with a cold nose. "The doggie's hungry too," Daniel said. "Then share with him," Grace said. "He's family now." Daniel broke his cracker in half and held it out to Shadow. The dog took it gently, barely touching the small fingers, and Daniel smiled for the first time since the blizzard. Grace felt something crack in her chest. Her children had lost so much. Their father, their home, their sense of safety. And now they were clinging to whatever kindness they could find, even if it came from a stranger's dog in the back of a truck on the worst night of their lives. Marcus climbed back into the driver's seat. He didn't start the engine immediately. Instead, he turned to face Grace. "I need to know everything," he said. "Not just the basics. Everything. Who Victor has in his pocket, what your husband found, where the weak points are." "I told you everything I know." "No, you told me the summary. Now I need the details. Because in about 6 hours we're going to be in the middle of Cherokee territory facing your mother and whoever else Victor sends after us. And I need to know exactly what we're walking into." Grace took a breath. This was it. The moment she either trusted this stranger completely or kept running alone. She thought about the blizzard, about his hands lifting her children into the warmth, about the way he'd looked at his dead wife's ashes and chosen to keep fighting instead of giving up. "Thomas kept a journal," she said. "Not paper? Digital. He recorded everything. Dates, names, transactions. He had video too. Meetings he secretly filmed. Conversations he recorded without Victor knowing. Where's the journal now?" "I don't know. When he died, his laptop disappeared. The police said they never found it at the scene. But Thomas was paranoid. He would have made backups." The flash drive in the Bible? That's what I'm hoping. But there might be more. Thomas visited my mother 3 times in the 2 weeks before he died. Each time he stayed for hours, alone with her. He wouldn't tell me why. Marcus processed this. You think he gave her more than just the flash drive? I think he gave her everything. He loved my mother like his own. He would have trusted her with his life. Grace's voice broke. He trusted her with his death too. Does your mother know what she has? I don't think so. Thomas wouldn't have wanted to put her in danger. He probably hid things without telling her. But Victor knows Thomas visited her. He'll have people watching the reservation. Then we don't go to the reservation directly. We go somewhere else first. Somewhere Victor won't expect. Where? Marcus pulled out his phone. Found a number he hadn't called in 3 years. His thumb hovered over the dial button. I have a friend, he said. Former teammate. Works with a federal task force now. Human trafficking. He's been after Victor Blackwood for years, but never had enough evidence. You want to bring in the feds? I want to give them a reason to move. Right now, Victor's untouchable because no one can prove anything. But if we get that evidence, if we hand them your husband's files on a silver platter, they'll have no choice but to act. What if your friend is one of Victor's people? You said yourself he has federal contacts. Jackson would die before taking a bribe. I'd stake my life on it. You're staking all our lives on it. Marcus met her eyes. I know. But we can't do this alone, Grace. Victor has an army. We need one too. Grace looked at her children, at their small faces, peaceful in sleep, at the trust they'd already placed in this man they barely knew. Make the call, she said. Marcus dialed. The phone rang 3 times before a groggy voice answered. This better be important. It's 4 in the damn morning. Jackson, it's Marcus. Silence. Then, Marcus, Jesus Christ. I've been calling you for weeks. Are you okay? Where are you? Wyoming. I need help. Anything. Name it. Victor Blackwood. The silence that followed was different, heavier, loaded with meaning. What do you know about Victor Blackwood? Jackson asked carefully. I know he's running a trafficking operation. I know he killed a man named Thomas Whitehorse for trying to expose him, and I know I have Thomas's widow and 4 children in my truck right now, and Victor's men are hunting them. Jackson exhaled sharply. Marcus, do you have any idea what you've stepped into? We've been building a case against Blackwood for 3 years. Every time we get close, our witnesses disappear or our evidence gets compromised. He has people inside the Bureau. We don't know who to trust. Then trust me. Thomas Whitehorse gathered evidence before he died. Real evidence. Recordings, documents, video. His wife knows where it is. We're going to get it. Where is it? Her mother's place, on the Cherokee Reservation. That's a 6-hour drive from your position. Victor will have the roads covered before you get halfway there. Which is why I need your help. Can you get to the reservation before us? Set up a perimeter. Give us backup. Jackson was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Professional. The voice of a federal agent making a tactical decision. I can have a team in position by noon. But Marcus, you need to understand something. If this goes wrong, if Victor's people inside the Bureau find out what we're doing, we could all end up like Thomas Whitehorse. I understand. Do you? Because 3 weeks ago, you told me you were thinking about ending things. Now you're in the middle of a federal trafficking case with a woman and 4 kids depending on you. What changed? Marcus looked at Grace. At the children sleeping in the back. At Shadow's steady eyes watching him with absolute trust. Everything, he said. Everything changed. All right, I'm mobilizing. ETA at the reservation is 12 hours. Can you stay alive that long? I've survived worse. No, you haven't. Victor Blackwood isn't some foreign warlord with limited resources. He's a billionaire with unlimited reach. He can buy anyone, find anyone, destroy anyone. You're not fighting a battle, Marcus. You're fighting a war. Then it's a good thing I know how to fight wars. He hung up before Jackson could respond. Grace stared at him. 12 hours. How are we supposed to stay hidden for 12 hours? We're not going to hide. We're going to move. Keep changing locations. Stay unpredictable. With 4 children, one of them a baby. With 4 children, one of them a baby, Marcus confirmed. It's not ideal, but it's what we've got. He started the engine. The truck rumbled back to life, warm air blasting from the vents. Get some rest, he told Grace. I'll drive until dawn. Then we'll find somewhere to lay low. I can't sleep. Not now. Then talk to me. Tell me about Thomas. Tell me who he was before all this. Grace was quiet for a moment. Then she began to speak. We met at a powwow when I was 19. He was 23, already working with tribal leadership, already trying to save the world, one family at a time. He had this laugh, this ridiculous, loud laugh that made everyone in the room turn around and smile. Love at first sight? No. He annoyed me at first, too confident, too sure of himself. But he kept showing up. Every event, every gathering, there he was. Eventually I realized he wasn't showing up for the events. He was showing up for me. How long were you married? 9 years. 9 years of good days and hard days and everything in between. He gave me 4 children and a purpose. He made me believe I mattered. You do matter. Grace shook her head. You don't understand. Before Thomas, I was nobody. A girl from a broken family on a reservation nobody cared about. My father disappeared when I was 15. My mother had to marry me off just to keep food on the table. I learned early that women like me don't get happy endings. And Thomas changed that. Thomas made me believe happy endings were possible. That's why losing him hurt so much. It wasn't just grief, it was the death of hope. Marcus drove in silence, processing her words. He understood them better than she knew. Jessica had been his hope too. Her death had killed something inside him that he'd thought was gone forever. Until tonight. Can I ask you something? Grace said. Anything. Why did you really stop on that highway? You could have driven past. Most people would have. Marcus considered the question. The honest answer was complicated. Messy. Full of ghosts and guilt and things he'd never said out loud. Because I saw myself, he said finally. In you, in those kids. I saw what I must have looked like 3 years ago when I got the news about Jessica. Broken. Desperate. Ready to give up. And I thought, if someone had been there for me in that moment, if someone had reached out and pulled me back from the edge, maybe I wouldn't have spent 3 years wishing I was dead. Grace reached over and took his hand. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was strong. Then we saved each other, she said. I was ready to die in that storm. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't see any other way. And you stopped. You carried my children to safety. You gave me a reason to keep fighting. We're not safe yet. I know, but for the first time in 6 months, I believe we might be. She squeezed his hand. That's enough. For now, that's enough. They drove through the darkness, 2 broken people holding on to each other, because holding on was better than letting go. Behind them, shadow curled around the children, keeping them warm. The storm began to ease snow, giving way to clear patches of starlit sky. And somewhere in the darkness, Victor Blackwood's men were hunting. The call came at 6 in the morning. Marcus's phone lit up with an unknown number. He glanced at Grace, then answered. Mr. Cole, I hope you're enjoying your little road trip. Victor Blackwood's voice slithered through the speaker like poison. How do you keep getting this number? I told you, I own this county. That includes the cell towers, the police, and about half the federal agents pretending to investigate me." Victor chuckled. "Speaking of which, I know you called Jackson Reeves. Bold move. Stupid, but bold." Marcus's blood went cold. "If you touch him..." "Relax. I have no interest in your friend. He's been chasing shadows for years. One more day won't change anything." Victor's tone shifted, becoming almost conversational. "I want to make you another offer, Mr. Cole. A better one." "I'm not interested. You haven't heard it yet." "I don't need to. $5 million. Cash. Unmarked. Deposited in any account you want. All you have to do is tell me where you're going and step aside. The widow and her children aren't your concern. They're not your family. They're not your responsibility." Marcus looked at Grace. She was watching him with eyes that held no fear, only trust. "You're right," Marcus said. "They're not my family. They're not my responsibility." He could hear Victor's smile through the phone. "So we have a deal." "No. Because I'm making them my responsibility, right here, right now. Those children are under my protection. That woman is under my protection. And you're going to have to go through me to get to them." "Through you. You're one man with a dog. I'm a Navy SEAL with 18 years of combat experience. I've killed more men than you've bought. And I've never lost a fight I cared about winning." Victor's voice went cold. "Then you've never fought me." "Looking forward to it." Marcus hurled the phone out the window. It shattered against the frozen asphalt and disappeared into the darkness. Grace stared at him. $5 million. Blood money. You didn't even hesitate. "Why would I? Some things aren't for sale." He glanced at her. "Your children's lives aren't for sale. Your freedom isn't for sale. And my soul definitely isn't for sale." Grace started to cry. Not the terrified tears of the night before. These were different. Relief. Gratitude. The overwhelming realization that she'd found someone willing to stand between her children and the darkness. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "Stay alive. That's how you thank me. Stay alive and help me put Victor Blackwood in a cell for the rest of his miserable life. I can do that." "Good. Because we've got about 6 hours until Jackson's team is in position. 6 hours of staying ahead of every cop, every bounty hunter, and every mercenary Victor can throw at us." "What's the plan?" Marcus checked his mirrors, checked the road ahead, calculated distances times variables. "First we find somewhere safe for the kids to rest, somewhere off the grid. Then we figure out exactly what we're walking into at the reservation." "I know a place," Grace said suddenly. "An old church, abandoned, about 2 hours from here. Thomas took me there once, said it was where he went to think." "Anyone else know about it?" "I don't think so. Thomas found it by accident years ago. He called it his sanctuary." "Then that's where we go. Get some rest, Grace. You're going to need your strength." She leaned back in her seat, Noah still pressed against her chest. Her eyes closed, but her hand found Marcus's arm and stayed there. For the first time in 3 years, Marcus didn't feel alone. It was terrifying. It was wonderful. It was everything he'd given up hoping for. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice that sounded like Jessica whispered, "This is why you're still alive. This is what you were saved for." He drove toward the dawn, toward the church, toward whatever came next. The war had only just begun. If you or someone you know is having a difficult time, free support is available. Find resources. The abandoned church sat at the end of a dirt road that hadn't seen maintenance in 20 years. Marcus pulled the truck behind the crumbling structure out of sight from anyone passing by. Not that anyone would pass by. This place had been forgotten by everyone except the ghosts. Grace stirred awake as the engine died. "We're here. We're here. Wake the children. They need to eat and stretch their legs while we can." The kids stumbled out of the truck, groggy and confused. Shadow immediately began patrolling the perimeter, nose to the ground, ears swiveling at every sound. Daniel clung to Lily's hand, his small face pale with exhaustion. "Mama, where are we?" Emma asked. "Somewhere safe, baby. Just for a little while." Marcus checked his watch. 8 in the morning. 4 hours until Jackson's team would be in position. 4 hours of waiting, planning, and praying Victor's men didn't find them. Inside the church was cold but dry. Dust covered every surface. Broken pews lay scattered like fallen soldiers. But the walls were solid, and the back room still had a working fireplace. "I'll get a fire started," Marcus said. "Keep the children together. Don't let them wander." Grace gathered her children in the corner while Marcus worked. Within minutes, flames crackled to life, pushing back the chill. Daniel moved closer to the warmth, his shivering finally beginning to ease. "Mama, I'm hungry," he whispered. "I know, baby. The nice man is going to find us something to eat." Marcus pulled the supplies from the truck. Canned soup, crackers, bottled water. Not much, but enough to keep them going. He heated the soup over the fire using an old pot he found in the church's abandoned kitchen. "It's not a feast," he said, handing Grace a bowl, "but it's hot." "It's perfect." She took a sip and closed her eyes. "I can't remember the last time someone took care of me." "Get used to it." She looked at him, something shifting in her expression. "You keep saying things like that. Like you're planning to stick around." "I am planning to stick around." "Why, after this is over, after Victor is stopped, you could walk away. Go back to your life." "What life? An empty cabin and a death wish." Marcus shook his head. "That's not a life, Grace. That's a slow suicide. I've been dying for 3 years. I just didn't have the courage to finish it. And now I have something worth living for." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Neither was ready to fully acknowledge. Grace looked away first, focusing on feeding Noah, but Marcus saw the flush creeping up her cheeks. Lily appeared at his elbow. "Mr. Marcus." "Yes, sweetheart. Is the bad man going to find us?" Marcus knelt down to her level. 8 years old, and already carrying the weight of the world. It wasn't fair. None of this was fair. "The bad man is going to try," he said honestly. "But I'm not going to let him hurt you. None of you. Do you believe me?" Lily studied his face with those 2 old eyes. "Daddy used to say the same thing. He said he would always protect us." "And he did. Your daddy died protecting you. He gathered evidence that's going to put the bad man away forever. That's why we're going to your grandma's house, to finish what your daddy started." "Will Daddy be proud of us?" Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Your daddy is watching right now, Lily, and he's so proud of you, all of you. I guarantee it." Lily nodded solemnly. Then she did something that broke Marcus's heart wide open. She stepped forward and wrapped her small arms around his neck. "Thank you for saving us," she whispered. "Daddy sent you. I know he did." Marcus held her gently, careful not to squeeze too tight. Over her shoulder, he saw Grace watching, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. Maybe Lily was right. Maybe Thomas Whitehorse had sent him. Maybe Jessica had too. 2 souls who refused to let the people they loved give up. "Okay," Marcus said, pulling back and clearing his throat. "Let's get everyone fed. We've got a long day ahead." They ate in silence, the only sounds the crackle of the fire and the wind howling outside. Shadow positioned himself near the door, ever vigilant. Daniel fell asleep against the dog's side, his small hand tangled in the thick fur. Grace moved closer to Marcus, lowering her voice so the children wouldn't hear. "What happens when we get to the reservation? We find the evidence, we hand it to Jackson, and we watch Victor Blackwood's empire crumble. It won't be that simple. My mother is stubborn. She doesn't trust outsiders, and she definitely won't trust a white man showing up with her daughter and grandchildren in the middle of a crisis. Then you'll have to convince her. And if I can't, then I'll convince her myself." Grace almost smiled. "You don't know my mother." "I've faced down warlords and terrorists. How bad can one Cherokee grandmother be? Worse. Much worse." Marcus chuckled despite himself. It felt strange laughing. He couldn't remember the last time he'd done it. His phone buzzed. A text from Jackson team assembled. En route. ETA 11 hours. Stay dark. "Jackson's moving," Marcus told Grace. "We need to leave in 2 hours. Get to the reservation before dark." "What about Victor's men? They'll be watching every road." "Not every road. Thomas brought you here for a reason. This church is off every map, which means there are other places like it, hidden routes that only locals know." "The old trading paths," Grace said slowly. "My grandmother used to talk about them. Roads that existed before the highways, before the government drew their lines." "Can you find them? Maybe. It's been years. But—" She paused, thinking. "There's a route that goes through the mountains. It's dangerous, barely passable in winter, but it comes out about 5 miles from the reservation. We used it when I was a child to avoid the main roads during protests." "Then that's our route." "Marcus, you don't understand. This path isn't on any GPS. One wrong turn and we go off a cliff. Even Thomas wouldn't take it unless he had no choice." "We have no choice." Grace looked at her children, at the fire dying slowly in the hearth, at the dog guarding them all like a furry sentinel. "Okay," she said, "but if we die on that mountain, I'm blaming you." "Fair enough." They left the church at 10 in the morning. The blizzard had passed, leaving behind a landscape of blinding white. Marcus drove slowly, following Grace's directions through a maze of unmarked turns and hidden paths. The children were quiet in the back seat. Even Daniel had stopped asking questions, sensing the tension in the adults' voices. Shadow lay across their laps, a warm weight of comfort and protection. "Left here," Grace said. "See that dead tree? Turn left." Marcus turned. The road disappeared into nothing, replaced by a narrow track barely wide enough for the truck. Trees pressed close on both sides, their branches scraping against the windows like skeletal fingers. "You sure about this?" "No, but it's the only way." They climbed higher into the mountains. The temperature dropped. Ice formed on the windshield faster than the wipers could clear it. Marcus's hands ached from gripping the steering wheel. "There's a ridge up ahead," Grace said. "Once we cross it, we'll be on reservation land, another hour to my mother's." "And Victor's men? If they're smart, they'll be watching the main entrance. No one comes this way. No one even knows this way exists anymore." Marcus allowed himself a moment of hope. Maybe they would make it. Maybe this insane plan would actually work. Then his phone rang. Unknown number. Again. He answered without speaking. "Mr. Cole." Victor Blackwood's voice was different now. Colder. The pretense of civility had vanished. "Did you really think you could hide from me?" "I'm not hiding. I'm driving. I don't know exactly where you're driving. The old mountain route. Very clever. Thomas used it too. Did you know that, the night before he died? He thought he was being so careful. So smart. And then my men found him anyway." Grace went pale. "He knows where we are." Of course I know. I've known since you left that pathetic church. Did you think I only have assets in the cities? I have eyes everywhere, Mr. Cole. Even in the places people think they've forgotten. Marcus's mind raced. If Victor knew their route, he'd have men waiting. The trap was already set. What do you want, Victor? What I've always wanted. The evidence Thomas hid. Give it to me, and this ends. You can take the widow and her children and disappear. I'll even let your friend Jackson live, though he's been quite annoying over the years. And if I refuse, then you die on that mountain. All of you, including those 4 innocent children who did nothing wrong except be born to the wrong parents. Marcus looked in the rearview mirror. Lily was watching him, listening. You know what your problem is, Victor. Enlighten me. You think everyone is like you, motivated by fear, controlled by threats. But some people can't be bought, and some people can't be scared. Everyone can be scared, Mr. Cole. Everyone. It's just a matter of finding the right pressure point. Then you haven't found mine yet, haven't I? Victor's voice dropped to a whisper. Let me tell you what's going to happen in the next 30 minutes. My men are waiting at the ridge. 6 of them, armed, experienced. The moment you crest that hill, they'll open fire. Your truck will flip, your dog will die, and those children will watch their mother bleed out in the snow before I take them. Grace grabbed Marcus's arm, her nails digging into his skin. Unless, Victor continued, you stop the truck right now. Step out. Walk away. Let my men take what I want, and I'll let you live. 1 man for 5 lives. Seems like a fair trade. Marcus stopped the truck. Grace stared at him, horror blooming in her eyes. Marcus, no. Please, don't. He held up a hand for silence. His eyes were fixed on the road ahead. Victor, let me tell you something about Navy SEALs. We're trained for situations exactly like this. Outnumbered, outgunned, no backup, no exit. You know what we call those situations. What? Tuesday. He floored the accelerator. The truck shot forward, engine roaring. Grace screamed. The children shrieked in the back seat. Shadow braced himself against the sudden momentum. Marcus, what are you doing? Changing the rules. He grabbed his phone, punched in a number, and hit send. Jackson, change of plans. Victor has men at the ridge. 6 hostiles. I need that airstrike you owe me from Kabul. Jackson's voice crackled through the speaker. That was a drone strike, and I can't exactly call one in on American soil. Then improvise. Marcus, I'm 8 hours out. I can't. Then get creative. I'm not dying on this mountain, and I'm not letting these kids die either. He hung up and threw the phone to Grace. When I tell you to run, you run. Take the children into the trees. Head downhill. Don't stop until you reach the reservation. I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. Because if I don't stop those men, we all die. And I won't let your children watch their mother die. Not like this. Grace was crying now openly. There has to be another way. There isn't. This is what I do, Grace. This is what I'm trained for. 18 years of kicking down doors and saving people who couldn't save themselves. Let me do it one more time. The ridge appeared ahead. Marcus could see the vehicles now. 3 black SUVs parked across the road. Men with rifles taking position behind them. Get ready to move. He reached into the canvas bag and pulled out a device Grace didn't recognize. A small metal cylinder with a pin on top. What is that? Flashbang, military grade. When I throw it, you'll have about 3 seconds of total chaos. That's your window. Get the children out. Get into the trees. Don't look back. Marcus? Grace. He grabbed her hand, squeezing hard. I didn't stop on that highway to watch you die. I stopped because something told me you were worth saving. You and those kids. Now let me finish what I started." She kissed him. It was sudden, desperate, fierce. The kiss of someone who might never get another chance. Marcus felt it burn through him, igniting something that had been cold for 3 years. "Don't you dare die," she whispered against his lips. "Not planning on it." He gunned the engine. The truck barreled toward the blockade. The men opened fire. Bullets punched through the windshield, through the hood, through the door beside Marcus's head. He ducked low, steering blind, relying on instinct and prayer. At the last second, he yanked the wheel. The truck spun, slamming sideways into the first SUV. Metal screamed against metal. Airbags exploded. Marcus's head cracked against the steering wheel, and for a moment everything went white. Then Shadow's bark cut through the chaos. Marcus grabbed the flashbang, kicked open his door, and threw it into the middle of the road. "Now!" Grace moved. She grabbed Noah, yanked open the back door, and pulled the children out. Lily had Emma's hand. Daniel clung to his sister's coat. They ran into the trees as the flashbang detonated. Light, sound, fury. Marcus rolled out of the truck, drawing his knife. The world was ringing, spinning, trying to tear itself apart. Through the chaos, he saw shapes moving. Victor's men disoriented but recovering. The first one came at him blind. Marcus caught his arm twisted, felt the bones snap. The man screamed and dropped. The second raised his rifle, but Shadow was faster. 70 pounds of German Shepherd hit the man chest high, driving him into the snow. 3 more, coming around the truck. Finding their bearings. Marcus moved. 18 years of training, 18 years of violence, 18 years of learning how to survive when survival seemed impossible. He was a weapon, and weapons don't feel fear. The third man went down with a knife in his throat. The fourth took a broken rifle stock to the temple. The fifth got his arm around Marcus's neck, squeezing, trying to choke the life out of him. Marcus dropped his weight, threw his elbow back, felt it connect with soft tissue. The grip loosened. He spun, grabbed the man's head, and twisted. Crack! Silence. Marcus stood in the middle of the road, surrounded by bodies. His hands were shaking. His vision was blurring. Blood ran from a gash on his forehead, dripping into his eyes. But he was alive. Shadow limped over a cut on his side, but still standing. The dog pressed against Marcus's leg, whining softly. "Good boy," Marcus breathed. "Good boy." In the distance, he could hear Grace calling his name. The children were crying, but they were alive. All of them. Alive. Marcus started walking toward the trees. Then a voice stopped him cold. "Impressive." He turned. Victor Blackwood stepped out from behind the last SUV. He was older than Marcus expected. Silver hair, expensive coat, the face of a man who had never been told no in his entire life. And in his hand, a pistol pointed directly at Marcus's chest. "6 of my best men, and you took them apart in under 2 minutes." Victor shook his head, something like admiration in his eyes. Thomas Whitehorse could never have done that. He was soft, idealistic. He thought justice would save him. Justice didn't, but his evidence will destroy you. Will it? Victor smiled. You don't have it yet, and you're about to die. Marcus didn't move, didn't flinch. If you were going to shoot me, you would have done it already. Maybe I want to savor the moment. It's not every day I meet someone worthy of respect. Your wife would have been proud, you know. Jessica wasn't it. Such a tragedy. Such a waste. The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Don't you dare speak her name. Why not? I know everything about you, Mr. Cole. Your service record, your commendations, your psychiatric evaluations after she died. Did you know you were flagged as a suicide risk? The VA had you on a watch list. I'm going to kill you. No, you're not. Because the moment you move, I pull this trigger, And then I walk into those woods, find that pretty widow and her children, and finish what I started. From the trees, Grace's voice. Marcus. Victor's smile widened. She sounds worried. Sweet. Thomas sounded the same way at the end, right before the bullet entered his skull. Something snapped inside Marcus. Not rage. Something colder. Sharper. The clarity that comes when all options disappear except one. He didn't think. He moved. Victor fired. The bullet hit Marcus in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. He kept moving. Closed the distance in 2 steps, grabbed Victor's gun hand and twisted. Victor screamed as his wrist shattered. The pistol fell. Marcus caught it. For one long moment they stood face to face. The billionaire and the soldier, the monster and the weapon forged to destroy monsters. You want to know something? Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. I was going to kill myself tonight. End everything. Disappear. Victor's eyes were wide with fear. Real fear. Maybe for the first time in his life. But then I found them. Grace. Those children. And I realized something. Marcus pressed the gun under Victor's chin. Some people are worth dying for, and some people are worth killing for. Wait, Victor gasped. I can give you anything. Money. Power. Protection. Whatever you want. I want my wife back. Can you give me that? Silence. I want Thomas Whitehorse alive again. Can you give me that? More silence. I want those children to never know what fear feels like. Can you give me that? Victor's mouth opened, closed. No words came out. That's what I thought. Marcus pulled the gun away. Victor sagged with relief. You're going to prison, Marcus said. You're going to spend the rest of your life in a cell watching everything you built crumble. And every night you're going to remember this moment. The moment you realized you weren't invincible, when he slammed the pistol into Victor's temple. The billionaire crumpled into the snow unconscious. Marcus stood over him, breathing hard. The wound in his shoulder was screaming. His vision was going gray at the edges. But he'd done it. He'd stopped the monster. Marcus! Grace burst from the trees, the children following. She saw the bodies. Saw Victor lying in the snow. Saw Marcus swaying on his feet, blood soaking through his jacket. Oh God, you're shot. Just a scratch. That is not a scratch. That's a bullet hole. I've had worse. Stop being a hero and sit down before you fall down. He sat. Not because she told him to, but because his legs stopped working. Shadow appeared pressing against his good side. Lily knelt in the snow beside him, her small face streaked with tears. You saved us, she whispered. You really saved us? Marcus looked at her, at Emma clutching Daniel's hand, at Grace already tearing strips from her shirt to bandage his wound, at the baby in her arms somehow sleeping through all of it. Your daddy saved you, he said. I just finished what he started. Grace pressed the makeshift bandage against his shoulder. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. We need to get you to a hospital. Reservation first. The evidence. Marcus, the evidence, Grace. We're too close to stop now. She stared at him. This stubborn, impossible, heroic man who had walked into her life 12 hours ago and changed everything. Fine. But the second we have that flash drive, I'm taking you to a doctor, even if I have to knock you out and drag you there. Despite everything, Marcus smiled. Yes, ma'am. They loaded Victor's unconscious body into one of the SUVs. Marcus drove his wounded shoulder, screaming with every turn of the wheel. Grace sat beside him. Noah in her arms, her eyes never leaving his face. The children were quiet in the back. Shadow lay across their laps, bloodied but unbowed. They had won this battle, but the war wasn't over yet. The reservation appeared through the trees like a memory from another life. Grace leaned forward, her breath catching as the familiar shapes of her childhood emerged from the snow. Home. She hadn't called it that in years, but the word rose unbidden in her chest. Marcus gripped the steering wheel with his good hand, his wounded shoulder burning with every heartbeat. The bandage Grace had made was already soaked through. He needed a hospital. He needed rest. But neither of those things would happen until they had the evidence. "Which house?" he asked. "The blue one, end of the road, my mother's." He pulled the SUV to a stop. Victor Blackwood lay unconscious in the back, bound with rope Marcus had found in one of the vehicles. Shadow guarded the man with bared teeth and a low, constant growl. "Stay here," Marcus said. "Let me go first." "No." Grace grabbed his arm. "My mother will shoot you on sight. I have to be the one." "You just said she'll shoot me. What makes you think she won't shoot someone driving a strange car with a tied-up white man in the back? Because I'll be standing in front of it." Before Marcus could argue, Grace was out of the vehicle and walking toward the house. Her legs felt weak. Her heart pounded against her ribs. 6 months since she'd seen her mother. 6 months of silence, shame and fear. The front door opened before Grace reached the porch. Helen Whitehorse stood in the doorway, a shotgun in her hands, and fire in her eyes. 62 years old, silver-streaked hair, braided tight, a face carved by grief and hardened by decades of fighting for survival. She looked at her daughter like she was seeing a ghost. "Grace, Mama. They told me you were dead. Victor Blackwood's people came here yesterday. They said you ran into a blizzard. They said—" Helen's voice cracked. The shotgun lowered an inch. "They said you were gone." "I'm not gone, Mama. I'm here. I'm alive." Helen moved down the steps faster than a woman her age should be able to move. She grabbed Grace's face with both hands, searching for proof that this was real. The shotgun clattered to the ground. My baby girl." She pulled Grace into a crushing embrace. I prayed all night. I told the Creator, take me instead. Take me, but spare my daughter." "I'm okay, Mama. We're all okay." Helen pulled back, her eyes going sharp. "The children, where are—" "In the car. All of them. Safe." Helen looked past her daughter to the black SUV idling in the snow. Her expression shifted from relief to suspicion in an instant. "That's not your car. And who is that behind the wheel?" Grace took a deep breath. "Mama, I need you to listen to me. Really listen. Can you do that? I'm listening. The man in that car saved my life. He saved all of our lives. His name is Marcus Cole. He's a former Navy SEAL, and he found us in the blizzard when we were about to die. He fought Victor Blackwood's men. He took a bullet protecting us. And he brought us here because Thomas hid something with you. Something that's going to bring Victor down forever." Helen's face went still. The kind of stillness that preceded either acceptance or violence. "Thomas," she said softly. "He came to see me. 3 times before he died. He brought me things. Asked me to keep them safe." "Do you still have them?" "Of course I have them. I gave Thomas my word." "Mama, I need them, now, before anyone else finds out we're here." Helen looked at the SUV again, at Marcus's bloodied figure behind the wheel, at Shadow's head visible through the rear window. "Bring the children inside," she said finally. "And bring your soldier. He looks like he's about to fall over." Grace waved to Marcus. He opened the door and stepped out, swaying slightly before steadying himself against the vehicle. Lily tumbled out next, then Emma, with Daniel's hand in hers. Shadow jumped down last, positioning himself between the children and the unknown. Helen watched them approach. Her eyes lingered on Marcus's wound, on the blood staining his jacket, on the exhaustion etched into every line of his face. "You're the one who found them," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am." "And you fought Victor Blackwood's men?" "6 of them, plus Blackwood himself." Helen's eyebrows rose. "Where is Blackwood now?" Marcus gestured to the SUV. "Tied up in the back, unconscious." For a long moment, Helen said nothing. Then she did something that shocked everyone present. She laughed. It was a harsh sound, rough from disuse, but genuine. She walked past Marcus to the SUV and peered through the window at Victor Blackwood's unconscious form. 20 years, she said. 20 years this man has terrorized our people, taken our children, destroyed our families, and here he is tied up like a pig for slaughter. She turned back to Marcus. "You did this?" "Yes, ma'am." "How?" "With great difficulty." Helen studied him. Marcus held her gaze without flinching. Whatever she was looking for, she seemed to find it. "Get inside," she said. "All of you. I'll get what Thomas left me." The house was warm, filled with the scent of burning cedar and something savory cooking on the stove. The children clustered around Grace, overwhelmed by everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. "Mama, I'm tired," Daniel whimpered. "I know, baby. Soon you can rest. I promise." Helen disappeared into a back room. Marcus lowered himself into a chair by the fire, his face gray with pain. Shadow sat at his feet, watching everything with alert eyes. Grace knelt beside Marcus. "Let me look at that shoulder." "I'm fine." "You're bleeding through the bandage. You're not fine." She began unwrapping the makeshift dressing. The wound beneath was ugly, a through and through that had missed the bone but torn through muscle. "You need stitches. Real ones." "After." "Marcus?" "After Grace. We didn't come this far to stop now." Helen returned, carrying a cedar box, the same one she'd mentioned on the phone. Her hands trembled slightly as she set it on the table. "Thomas gave me this the last time I saw him," she said. "He told me to guard it with my life. He said if anything happened to him, his wife would come for it, and that I should trust whoever she brought with her." She opened the lid. Inside lay a leather pouch, a stack of photographs, and a small black flash drive. Grace reached for the flash drive, but Helen stopped her. "Wait. There's something else. Something Thomas made me promise to show you first." She pulled out a folded letter from beneath the photographs. The paper was worn, the creases deep from repeated reading. Helen handed it to Grace. "He wrote this the night before he died. He asked me to give it to you if he didn't come back." Grace's hands shook as she unfolded the paper. Thomas's handwriting, the same handwriting that had left her love notes on the kitchen counter, that had signed their marriage certificate, that had labeled boxes when they moved into their first home together. "My beloved Grace. If you're reading this, then I didn't make it home. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for leaving you, for leaving our children. But I need you to understand why I did what I did. Victor Blackwood has destroyed too many families. Too many children have disappeared into his network, never to be seen again. I couldn't stand by and watch anymore. I couldn't let our children grow up in a world where monsters like him operate in the shadows. Everything you need is in this box. The flash drive contains recordings, documents, and video evidence of Victor's operation. There's enough there to bring down not just him, but everyone who helped him. Judges, politicians, even a state senator named William Crawford, who provided political cover in exchange for money. I know you're scared. I know this feels impossible. But you're stronger than you know, Grace. You've always been stronger than you know. Trust yourself. Trust our children. And trust whoever stands beside you when the time comes. I love you. I love Lily Emma Daniel and the baby I'll never meet. Tell them their father died fighting for what was right. Tell them to be brave. Tell them to be kind. Tell them that love is always stronger than fear. Forever yours. Thomas Grace couldn't see the words anymore. Tears blurred everything into a watercolor of grief and love and loss. She pressed the letter to her chest and sobbed. Marcus stood ignoring the fire in his shoulder and put his good arm around her. He didn't speak, just held her while she cried. Lily appeared at her mother's side. "Mama, is that from Daddy?" Grace nodded, unable to form words. "Can I see it?" Grace handed her the letter. Lily read it slowly, her lips moving with each word. When she finished, she looked up at her mother with tears streaming down her face. "Daddy was a hero," she whispered. "Yes, baby, he was. And Mr. Marcus is a hero too." Grace looked at Marcus, at this broken, beautiful man who had walked into their lives and changed everything. "Yes," she said, "he is." Helen interrupted gently. "We need to see what's on that drive. There's a laptop in the back room. A sound outside, tires on gravel, multiple vehicles." Shadow's head snapped toward the window. A growl built in his chest. Marcus was already moving, pushing Grace behind him. "How many?" Helen looked through a gap in the curtains. Her face went pale. "3 SUVs. At least a dozen men. Victor's backup. They must have tracked us. The front door is the only way out. They'll have it covered." Grace grabbed her children, pulling them close. "What do we do?" Marcus's mind raced. Outnumbered, outgunned, one good arm, a woman, an elder, and 4 children to protect. Tuesday, he thought grimly. Another Tuesday. "Is there a basement?" he asked Helen. "Yes, with a storm cellar exit that comes out behind the woodshed. Take the children. Go. Now." "I'm not leaving my home." "Helen, please. Your daughter needs you. Your grandchildren need you. If those men get through that door, they'll kill everyone in this house." Helen's jaw tightened. She looked at Grace, at the children clinging to their mother, at the terror in their eyes. "Come," she said, taking Lily's hand. "All of you, quickly." Grace hesitated. "Marcus, I'll hold them off. Buy you time to get to the cellar exit." "That's suicide." "No, it's math. 12 men, 1 door. They can only come through 2 at a time. I've held worse positions." "You can barely stand." "Then I'll sit." "Go, Grace. Take the children. Find Jackson. Give him the evidence. Make Thomas's death mean something." Grace grabbed his face with both hands. "You listen to me. You are not dying today. Do you understand? You promised those children. You promised me. Don't you dare break that promise." Marcus looked into her eyes, saw the fire there, the ferocity, the love she was afraid to name but couldn't hide. "I'll find you," he said. "I swear to God, I'll find you." "You better." She kissed him. Hard and desperate, and full of everything they hadn't had time to say. Then she grabbed Noah from Helen's arms and ran for the basement stairs. Marcus turned to face the door. Shadow stood beside him, hackles raised, teeth bared. "Just like old times, boy," Marcus said. "You and me against the world." Shadow barked once. Agreement. The front door exploded inward. Marcus fired twice. 2 men dropped. The third took a bullet to the leg and fell screaming. The fourth slipped through and raised his rifle, but Shadow was faster. 70 pounds of German Shepherd hit him like a missile, jaws closing around his arm. More came. Always more. Marcus fought with everything he had. The gun emptied. He used it as a club. A man got his hands around his throat. Marcus broke his nose with a headbutt and threw him into his partner. Blood ran down his arm. His vision was tunneling. The wound in his shoulder had torn open, pumping crimson with every heartbeat. He couldn't win. He knew that. But he didn't have to win. He just had to give Grace enough time. A rifle butt caught him in the temple. He went down hard, the world spinning. Shadow yelped as someone kicked him aside. Through the chaos, Marcus saw a man in an expensive suit step over the bodies. Gray hair, cold eyes, a face twisted with fury. Not Victor Blackwood. Someone older, more polished. "Where is she?" the man demanded. "Where is the widow?" Marcus spat blood at his feet. "Go to hell." The man smiled thinly. "I'm Senator William Crawford, and you've just made the biggest mistake of your life." The name hit Marcus like ice water, the senator from Thomas's letter, the political connection Victor had been protecting. "You're part of this," Marcus said. "You're part of all of it." "I'm not part of it. I own it. Victor Blackwood was a useful tool, but he got sloppy. Let a tribal activist gather evidence. Let a widow escape." Crawford shook his head. "Now I have to clean up his mess personally." "The FBI knows. I called them. They're on their way." "The FBI," Crawford laughed. "I have 4 agents on my payroll. Your friend Jackson has been fed misinformation for years. By the time anyone relevant arrives, this will all be over. A tragic fire on an Indian reservation, a family dead from smoke inhalation, a decorated veteran who tried to help but couldn't." He pulled out a pistol, the same model Marcus had taken from Victor. "Any last words, soldier?" Marcus looked up at him. Broken, bleeding, beaten, but not defeated. "Yeah," he said. "Look behind you." Crawford hesitated. The oldest trick in the book. He wasn't going to fall for. The shot came from the basement stairs. Helen Whitehorse stood at the bottom, her shotgun raised, smoke curling from the barrel. She'd come back. She'd come back to fight for her home. Crawford stumbled, a red bloom spreading across his stomach. His pistol fell from his fingers. He looked down at the wound with something like disbelief. You shot me!" "Damn right I did." Helen pumped another round into the chamber. "This is Cherokee land, and you're not welcome here." She fired again. Crawford crumpled. The remaining men scattered suddenly, leaderless. They fled through the broken door, their vehicles roaring to life and disappearing into the night. Helen walked to Marcus and offered her hand. He took it, pulling himself up with a groan. "I told you to leave," he said, "and I told you I wasn't abandoning my home. We both lied." Despite everything, Marcus laughed. It hurt like hell, but he laughed. "Thank you," he said. "Don't thank me yet. You're bleeding everywhere, and those men will be back with reinforcements." She looked at the bodies scattered across her living room floor. "We need to move, now." "The evidence, I have it." She held up the cedar box. "Everything Thomas gave me, everything we need." "Where's Grace?" "Cellar exit. She should be at the woodshed by now." They found her there, huddled with the children and Shadow waiting in the darkness. When Grace saw Marcus standing, she ran to him and nearly knocked him over. "You're alive! Oh God, you're alive!" "Barely. Your mother saved me." Grace looked at Helen with new eyes. "Mama, later, we need to go. I know a place. An old hunting cabin about 3 miles from here. We can hide there until help arrives." Marcus's phone buzzed. He fumbled for it with blood-slick fingers. Jackson's voice. "Marcus, we're 20 minutes out. What's your status?" "Compromised. Senator William Crawford was here. He's dead." Helen Whitehorse shot him. Silence. Then, did you say Senator Crawford? Yes, he was running the whole thing. Victor Blackwood was just the front man. Marcus, do you understand what you're telling me? A United States senator was personally involved in a trafficking operation. I've got the proof. Flash drive documents, video, everything. Jackson exhaled sharply. Stay where you are. Do not move. I'm bringing everyone. FBI, U.S. Marshal, State Police. Anyone Crawford hasn't bought. This is going to be the biggest takedown in federal history. Marcus looked at Grace. At Helen. At the 4 children who had survived the worst night of their lives. We'll be waiting, he said. He hung up and sagged against the wall. The adrenaline was fading. The pain was coming in waves. His vision kept going gray at the edges. Grace grabbed his face. Stay with me. Marcus, stay with me. Don't you dare close your eyes. Just need to rest. Just for a minute. No. No resting. Not yet. She turned to Helen. Help me get him to the cabin. He needs pressure on that wound. They half-carried him through the snow. Shadow stayed close, whining softly. The children followed in a terrified cluster, Lily holding Daniel's hand, Emma clutching her grandmother's coat. The cabin was small, but solid. Helen started a fire, while Grace laid Marcus on the only bed. She stripped off his jacket, his shirt revealing the wound beneath. It was worse than she'd thought. Much worse. He's lost too much blood, she said. He needs a transfusion. I'm O-negative, Helen said. Universal donor. If we can rig up something. Mama, this isn't a hospital. We don't have... I was a nurse for 30 years before I retired. I know what to do. But I need clean tubes, needles, a way to transfer the blood safely. Where would we get... My medical kit, in the house. The men might have destroyed it, but if it's still intact... I'll go, Lily said. Everyone turned to look at her. 8 years old, standing straight, eyes blazing with determination. Lily, no, Grace said. It's too dangerous. I'm small. I can sneak in. They won't see me. Lily looked at Marcus unconscious on the bed. He saved us. Now I save him. Grace wanted to argue. Every maternal instinct screamed at her to say no. But she looked at her daughter, this fierce, brave, impossible child, and saw something she recognized. Thomas's spirit, alive and burning in their little girl. The kit is under the bathroom sink, Helen said quietly. Red bag. Can you remember that? Red bag, bathroom sink? Lily nodded. I can do this. Grace knelt down and took her daughter's face in her hands. You go fast. You stay hidden. And if you see anyone, you run. Do you understand? I understand, Mama. I love you. So much. I love you too. Lily slipped out into the darkness. Shadow tried to follow, but Grace held him back. Stay. Guard. The dog whined, but obeyed. The minutes stretched like hours. Grace sat beside Marcus, holding his hand, whispering prayers she didn't know she still remembered. Don't leave me, she said. We've come too far. Don't leave me now. Marcus's fingers twitched in hers. His eyes fluttered open. Grace, I'm here. I'm right here. The children, they're safe. Everyone's safe. Lily went to get medical supplies. Help is coming. Lily, you let Lily go alone. She insisted. She's brave, like her father. Marcus smiled weakly, like her mother. The door burst open. Grace jumped, but it was Lily Redbag clutched in her hands, face flushed with triumph. I got it! I got the kit! Helen moved fast, pulling out supplies, setting up a makeshift transfusion. Grace watched in awe as her mother worked decades of training flowing back like muscle memory. Hold his arm still, Helen ordered. This is going to hurt. The needle went in. Blood began to flow. Marcus gritted his teeth, but didn't make a sound. "You're going to be okay," Grace said. "You're going to be okay." In the distance, the sound of helicopters. Getting closer. Helen looked up. "That's either rescue or more trouble." "It's rescue," Grace said. She didn't know how she knew. She just knew. "It's finally rescue." The helicopters landed 20 minutes later. Jackson was first through the door, followed by a dozen agents in tactical gear. He took one look at Marcus on the bed and went pale. "Jesus Christ, what happened? 12 men, one door, I held the position." "You're insane." "You keep saying that." Jackson turned to Grace. "Mrs. Whitehorse, I'm Agent Jackson Reeves. I understand you have evidence for us." Helen handed him the cedar box. "Everything my son-in-law gathered, recordings, documents, video, enough to bring down Victor Blackwood and everyone who worked with him." Jackson opened the box. His eyes widened as he flipped through the contents. This is everything. More than everything." He looked at Grace. "Your husband was a hero, ma'am. What he did here is going to save countless lives." "I know," Grace said softly. "I always knew." The medics worked on Marcus, stabilizing him for transport. Grace refused to leave his side, holding his hand through everything. "I'm coming with you," she said when they loaded him onto the helicopter. "Ma'am, there isn't room. Make room." The medic looked at Jackson. Jackson nodded. "Make room." As the helicopter lifted off, Grace looked down at the reservation at her mother's house, at the cabin, at the land that had been her family's home for generations. Victor Blackwood was in federal custody. Senator Crawford was dead. The evidence was in the hands of people who would use it. They had won. But looking at Marcus's pale face, Grace knew the fight wasn't over yet. The biggest battle was still ahead. Keeping this man alive long enough to see the future they'd earned. The hospital room was quiet, except for the steady beep of monitors. Grace hadn't left Marcus's side in 3 days. She slept in the chair beside his bed, ate whatever the nurses brought her, and held his hand through every nightmare that made him thrash against the sheets. The doctors said he was lucky. The bullet had missed major arteries by millimeters. Another inch to the left, and he would have bled out on Helen's living room floor. Lucky. Grace didn't believe in luck anymore. She believed in miracles. On the 4th day, Marcus opened his eyes. "Grace." She was beside him instantly, her hand finding his face. "I'm here. I'm right here." "The children. Safe, with my mother. They've been asking about you every hour." Marcus tried to sit up and immediately grimaced. "How long was I out?" 3 days. You lost a lot of blood. The doctor said you should have died." "I've heard that before." Grace laughed, despite herself. It came out half sob. "You scared me. Don't ever do that again." "No promises." He squeezed her hand weakly. "Victor Crawford. Victor is in federal custody. Crawford is dead. Jackson has been on the news every day talking about the biggest trafficking bust in Wyoming history. The evidence worked. Better than worked. Thomas documented everything. Names, dates, transactions. They've arrested 37 people so far, including 4 judges and 2 more state officials. It's everywhere, Marcus. Every news channel, every newspaper. The whole country is watching." Marcus closed his eyes. Not from exhaustion. From relief. "Thomas," he whispered. "He did it. Even from the grave, he did it." "No." Grace's voice was firm. "We did it. You, me, my mother, even Lily. Thomas gathered the evidence, but we're the ones who brought it to light. We're the ones who refused to let his sacrifice be in vain." The door opened. Jackson walked in, looking exhausted but triumphant. "You're awake. Good. I was starting to think I'd have to promote you posthumously." "Promote me? I'm not military anymore." "No, but you're about to be the most famous veteran in America. The press wants interviews. The president wants to give you a medal. And about 6 different movie studios have already called about buying the rights to your story." Marcus groaned. "I don't want any of that." "I know. That's why I've been handling the vultures for you." Jackson pulled up a chair. "Seriously, brother, what you did out there, I've seen a lot of heroics in my career, but holding a position against 12 armed men with 1 good arm and a German shepherd, that's going to be taught at Quantico for the next 50 years. I had help. Helen shot Crawford. I know. She's been giving statements. The Bureau is treating her like a hero, which she is." Jackson leaned forward. "There's something else. Something the press doesn't know yet." Grace stiffened. "What?" "When we went through Crawford's files, we found something unexpected. A list. Names of children who were taken over the past 15 years, and where they were sent." Grace's hand flew to her mouth. "The children, you found them. Not all of them, but enough. We've already reunited 12 families, 12 children who were stolen, sold, and forgotten. And it's just the beginning." Tears streamed down Grace's face. "Thomas, he wanted this. He wanted those children found. He gave us the roadmap. We just had to follow it." Jackson stood. "Get some rest, both of you. The hard part is over. Now comes the healing." He left, closing the door softly behind him. Grace laid her head on Marcus's chest, careful to avoid his wounded shoulder. His good arm wrapped around her, pulling her close. "It's really over," she whispered. "This part is over. But there's still a lot ahead." "What do you mean?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, vulnerable. "Grace, I've been alone for 3 years. I convinced myself that was okay, that I didn't deserve anything better. But then, I found you. You and those kids. And suddenly I want things I'd given up wanting." "What things?" "A home, a family, a reason to wake up in the morning." He tilted her chin up, making her look at him. "I know this is fast. I know we've only known each other for a few days, but those days felt like a lifetime, and I don't want to waste any more time pretending I don't feel what I feel." Grace's heart pounded so hard she was sure the monitors would pick it up. "What do you feel?" "Like I was dead before I met you. Like everything that happened in my life, the training, the missions, the loss, was preparing me for that moment on the highway. Like God took 2 broken people and put them in the same place at the same time because he knew they could fix each other." Grace was crying again. She'd cried more in the past week than she had in the entire previous year. "I feel it too," she whispered. "I've been so scared to admit it, scared that if I said it out loud something would take it away. Nothing is taking this away. Not Victor Blackwood, not the past, not fear." Marcus cupped her face in his hand. "I love you, Grace Whitehorse. I know it's crazy. I know it doesn't make sense. But I love you. I love you too." The words came out like a dam breaking. "I've loved you since you carried my children through that blizzard. I've loved you since you looked at your wife's ashes and chose to keep fighting. I've loved you since you stood between my family and certain death without hesitating." He kissed her. Gentle, tender nothing like the desperate kiss before the battle. This was a promise. A beginning. When they finally pulled apart, Grace was smiling through her tears. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we heal. Both of us. Together." 2 weeks later, Marcus was discharged from the hospital. The children were waiting in the lobby, bouncing with excitement. The moment he appeared in the wheelchair hospital protocol he'd insisted he could walk, they swarmed him. "Mr. Marcus, you're okay. We missed you so much. Shadow missed you too. He's been sad." Marcus laughed, pulling them close despite the ache in his shoulder. "I missed you too. All of you." Daniel climbed into his lap, uninvited. The nurses tried to protest, but one look from Grace silenced them. "Are you coming home with us?" Daniel asked. Marcus looked at Grace. She nodded. "If you'll have me," he said. "Yes," all three children shouted at once. Helen stood back watching with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. When Marcus approached her, she crossed her arms. "You nearly died in my house," she said. "I'm sorry about the mess. You killed men in front of my grandchildren. I'm sorry about that too. You made my daughter cry more in 1 week than she has in years." Marcus braced himself. He'd survived Victor Blackwood's men. He could survive an angry Cherokee grandmother. Then Helen's face softened. She reached out and touched his cheek the same way she'd touched Grace's when they first arrived. "You brought my family back to me," she said quietly. "You gave Thomas's death meaning. You protected my grandchildren when I couldn't." Her voice broke. "How can I ever repay that? Let me be part of your family. That's all the payment I need." Helen studied him for a long moment. Then she did something Marcus never expected. She hugged him. "Welcome to the family, soldier." They returned to the reservation. Marcus had expected to feel like an outsider, a white man in Cherokee territory, but the community embraced him in ways he never anticipated. Word had spread about what he'd done, about the battle at Helen's house, about the evidence that was bringing down Victor Blackwood's empire. People he'd never met stopped to shake his hand. Elders blessed him in languages he didn't understand. Children followed him around, begging to pet Shadow and hear stories about his Navy SEAL days. "They think you're a hero," Grace said one evening as they sat on Helen's porch watching the sunset. "I'm not a hero. I just did what needed to be done." "That's exactly what heroes say." 3 months passed. The trials began. Victor Blackwood sat in a federal courtroom, stripped of his expensive suits and arrogant smiles, listening as witness after witness testified about his crimes. The evidence Thomas had gathered was devastating. Video recordings of meetings where Blackwood discussed prices for children like they were livestock, documents showing money transfers to corrupt officials, audio files of conversations that made even hardened prosecutors look sick. Grace testified. She told the court about her husband's murder, about the night she fled into the blizzard, about the terror of believing her children would be taken and sold. Marcus testified too. He described the battle at the Ridge, the confrontation with Crawford, the moment he understood the full scope of what Blackwood had built. When the verdict came guilty on all counts, Grace broke down in Marcus's arms, not from grief, from relief, from the overwhelming knowledge that justice had finally been served. Blackwood was sentenced to life without parole. The other conspirators received sentences ranging from 20 years to life. The trafficking network was dismantled. Over 40 children were recovered and returned to their families. Thomas Whitehorse was posthumously honored by the FBI for his bravery. A foundation was established in his name to help trafficking victims rebuild their lives. Grace spoke at the dedication ceremony, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "My husband believed that one person could make a difference," she said. "He believed that evil could be defeated if good people refused to look away. He died for that belief. But his sacrifice wasn't in vain. Because of Thomas, families are reunited, children are safe, and monsters like Victor Blackwood are finally facing justice. She paused, looking at Marcus in the front row, at her children sitting straight and proud, at her mother wiping tears from her eyes. Thomas also taught me something else, that love survives everything, that hope can bloom even in the darkest winter, that no matter how broken you are, there's always a chance to start again. 6 months after the trial, Marcus asked Grace to marry him. It wasn't a grand proposal, no fancy restaurant, no expensive ring, no choreographed moment. They were sitting by the fire at Helen's house, the children asleep upstairs, Shadow dozing at their feet. "I've been thinking," Marcus said, "about the future, about what comes next." He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, silver simple, with a single small diamond. "I know I can't replace Thomas. I would never try. But I love your children like they're my own. I love your mother like she's mine. And I love you more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone after Jessica died." Grace stared at the ring. Her hand trembled as she reached for it. "I bought this the day after I got out of the hospital," Marcus continued. "I've been carrying it around ever since, waiting for the right moment. But I realized there is no perfect moment. There's just this, you and me, whatever comes next." "Yes," Grace whispered. Marcus blinked. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I want to build a life with you. Yes to everything." Then she threw her arms around him, laughing and crying at the same time. "Did you really think I would say anything else? I hoped. But hoping and knowing are different things." "Then know this, Marcus Cole. I'm yours, completely, forever." They were married in the spring on the reservation, in a ceremony that blended Cherokee tradition with the simple vows they'd written themselves. Helen officiated, her voice strong and clear as she blessed their union. The children served as ring bearers, all 4 of them, including Noah, who toddled down the aisle clutching his tiny pillow with fierce concentration. Shadow wore a bow tie. It was Daniel's idea, and no one had the heart to refuse him. The community gathered to witness. Federal agents who had worked the case, families whose children had been returned, even Jackson, who stood as Marcus's best man despite the ribbing he knew he'd receive from his colleagues. When Marcus and Grace exchanged rings, the sky seemed to hold its breath, and when they kissed, a cheer went up that echoed across the mountains. "Ladies and gentlemen," Helen announced, "I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Marcus and Grace Cole." Grace had taken his name, not because she had to, but because she wanted to, because she was ready to start a new chapter. That night, after the celebration had wound down and the children were asleep in their beds, Marcus and Grace stood on the porch of their new home, a cabin Marcus had built with help from the community just a mile from Helen's place. "1 year ago, I was driving to that old cabin to end my life," Marcus said quietly. "I had given up. On everything. On everyone. On myself." Grace leaned into him. "And now I have 4 children who call me Dad. A mother-in-law who threatens to shoot me if I don't eat enough at dinner. A dog who thinks he's the actual head of the household. And a wife who is the strongest, bravest, most beautiful woman I've ever known. That's quite a list. It's everything. It's more than everything." He turned to face her. "You saved me, Grace. I thought I was rescuing you from that blizzard, but the truth is you rescued me. You and those kids pulled me back from the edge. You gave me a reason to live when I'd forgotten how." "We saved each other," Grace said. "That's what family does." In the distance, a light snow began to fall. Not the violent blizzard that had brought them together, but a gentle dusting that made the world quiet and new. "The first snow of winter," Grace whispered. It used to terrify me, Marcus admitted. Every winter since Jessica died, I dreaded the cold, dreaded the memories. And now, he pulled her closer. Now I understand that winters don't last forever, that storms pass, that spring always comes even when you've forgotten what warmth feels like. From inside the house, a small voice called out, "Mama, Dad, we can't sleep." Grace smiled. "Duty calls." "Always." They went inside together. The children were gathered in the living room, too excited from the wedding to settle down. Lily was reading to her siblings from a book of Cherokee legends. Daniel was trying to climb on Shadow's back. Emma was braiding Noah's hair into tiny, ridiculous spikes. Marcus looked at them, this family he'd never expected to have. This life he'd never believed he deserved. "Story time?" Lily asked hopefully. Marcus sat down on the couch. The children immediately swarmed him, arranging themselves in various configurations against his body. Shadow settled at his feet, sighing contentedly. "What kind of story do you want?" Marcus asked. "A real one," Emma said. "About you and Mama. About how you found us." Marcus looked at Grace. She nodded, settling into the armchair across from him. "Once upon a time," Marcus began, "there was a soldier who had lost everything. His wife, his child, his reason to live. He was driving through a blizzard on the worst night of his life, ready to give up. And then he saw something in the snow. A woman. A baby. 3 brave children who refused to stop fighting even when the cold tried to take them. "That's us," Daniel said excitedly. "That's you!" And the soldier knew in that moment that his life would never be the same. Because those children needed him, and he needed them even more than he knew. "What happened next?" Lily asked, even though she knew the story by heart. "He carried them to safety. He fought bad men. He almost died a few times. But through all of it, he learned something important." "What?" Marcus looked at Grace. At the love in her eyes. At the life they'd built from the ashes of their pain. That God doesn't make mistakes. That every broken road leads somewhere, and that sometimes the darkest winters lead to the brightest springs. The children were quiet, absorbing his words. Then Daniel yawned loudly, breaking the spell. "Time for bed," Grace said, standing. "All of you. Now." There were protests, negotiations, bargaining, but eventually all 4 children were tucked in, kissed, blessed, and finally silent. Marcus and Grace returned to the porch. The snow was falling heavier now, coating the world in white. "Do you ever think about what would have happened?" Grace asked. "If you hadn't stopped? If you'd just driven past, every day, and every day I thank God I didn't. I thank him too." Grace took his hand. "Thomas is watching. I can feel it. He's at peace now." "I hope so. He deserved peace. We all do." She rested her head on his shoulder. "And we finally have it." They stood there in the falling snow, 2 people who had found each other at the exact moment they needed saving. 2 broken souls who had learned to heal together. 2 hearts that had remembered how to love. In the house behind them, their children slept safely. Their dog kept watch. Their life continued imperfect and beautiful and full of promise. Marcus thought about the man he'd been 1 year ago. The man who had driven into a blizzard hoping to find an end. He barely recognized that person now. Grief had transformed into gratitude. Guilt had become grace. Despair had yielded to hope. "You're not alone anymore," Grace whispered, echoing the words he'd spoken on that frozen highway so long ago. Marcus smiled. "Neither are you." And as the snow fell gently around them, as the stars emerged one by one above the mountains, as the new year approached with all its unknown possibilities, Marcus Cole finally understood the truth he'd been searching for his entire life. Some storms are sent to destroy us, but some storms are sent to lead us home. And the deepest love often begins in the coldest winters, when two lost souls find the courage to reach for each other through the snow. They had survived the blizzard. They had defeated the monsters. They had found their way back to each other and to themselves. And now, standing on the porch of the home they'd built together, surrounded by the family they'd forged through fire and ice. Marcus and Grace Cole looked toward the future, not with fear, not with doubt, but with the unshakable certainty that comes from knowing the hardest part is behind you. They had walked through the storm, and they had come out the other side, together, forever. Home at last. Some people say miracles arrive with thunder and angels and signs written across the sky, but sometimes a miracle looks like a weary soldier stopping on a frozen highway. Sometimes it looks like a mother who refuses to give up even when the world tells her she should. And sometimes it looks like two broken lives finding each other at the exact moment God decides they've carried enough pain. If you're watching this tonight, and you feel like life has been cold for too long, hold on. Redemption doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it walks toward you slowly, gently, like a hand reaching through the snow. And remember, no matter how dark the winter, no matter how fierce the storm, you are never truly alone. Because somewhere out there, someone is looking for you too. God bless you. Stay warm. And never stop believing that your spring is coming.